Our theme for 2021 as a church is built to last because this is the year North Place turns 100 years old. So for the last several weeks, we've been studying the foundational principles that give people, churches, and organizations staying power. Why do some flourish while others fail? What are the guiding principles that ensure we are building our lives to last? And the simplest answer to that question is wisdom. God's wisdom is the guiding principle that will cause you to flourish. So we've been studying the book of Proverbs. We studied a little bit in it last year and didn't get finished. So we started this year trying to immerse ourselves in a wisdom that will give us staying power. In week 1, beginning of the year, we looked at the spiritual disciplines. In week 2, the power of money. Last week, week 3, we looked at the power of the tongue, the power of our words. Today and over the next few weeks, we're going to be looking at the power of relationships. And it's really a series within a series because there's far much more wisdom on relationships in the book of Proverbs than I can handle in 1 week. So we're going to be looking at what godly wisdom says about real friendship and what godly wisdom says about family relationship and what godly wisdom says about how to prepare broken relationships. And each of those are going to kind of be their own week. And remember, way back when we started to study of Proverbs in the fall of last year, we said this about wisdom. Having wisdom is so much more than being moral. Sure, godly wisdom calls us to high standards of morality, but it's so much more than that. Because most of our everyday decisions in life have little to do with morals and ethics. There may be multiple completely moral, ethical, or allowable options that stand in front of you, and yet what you decide in that moment can make or break your life. This job or that job, this house or that house, this investment or that investment. Wisdom gives you direction in moments just like that so that you make the right decision and last and your life flourishes. And this is so true in the area of friendship. Developing friendships may not be an issue of morality or ethics, but who you choose to develop friendships with will make or break your life. That's why I often tell people, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Because the entire quality of your life will be impacted by your friendships. So today, let's take a deep dive into the power of true friendship. And let me warn you, as we look at this picture Proverbs paints of a true friend, it's probably going to elicit several emotions in you. At least it did in me. While I was preparing for this sermon, I felt 3 really strong and powerful emotions. I felt deep gratitude for the people in my life who've been true, godly, biblical friends. Because Proverbs is going to show us how rare it is to have a friend like this. So it made me grateful for my true friends. But I also felt a deep longing. As I looked at what Proverbs had to say about friendship, it made me want more and deeper friends like what Proverbs talks about. I felt longing. But I also felt crushed. There was a crushing. Because when I measured myself against what God's wisdom says a real friend is, it crushed me to realize how bad of a friend I can be. Gratitude, longing, crushing. Now, I'm sure as we walk through this, you'll feel at least one, if not all 3 of these emotions. But if you'll stay engaged all the way to the end, you will see how the gospel addresses both longing and crushing as it relates to friendship. Proverbs says, you're not going to lead a wise life. Your life is not going to flourish unless you're great at choosing, forging, and keeping meaningful friendship. So here are 4 things we need to know to do that according to the book of Proverbs. The uniqueness of true friendship, how to discover a true friend, how to forge true friendship, and how to possess the power to do all the above. Now look at the first one, the uniqueness of true friendship. Proverbs 18:24. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Now don't miss the magnitude of that statement. A friend who sticks closer than a brother. A true friendship can be closer to you and more enriching to you than your relationship with siblings or other family members. And to understand just how radical it was for the proverb writer to say this, his culture was far more family oriented than our own. And yet he says friendship can be more enriching to you than even siblings and extended family. How can this be true? Well, Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend loves at all times. A brother is born for a time of adversity. Here's what Proverbs is saying. Your siblings, your family, they're committed to you because you're blood. They're going to be there for you in times of adversity because you're family. It's part of the obligation and commitment of being family. You have history. You're related. The family you don't even get along with, really, or those that you don't hang out with socially because you don't have that much in common. Even those family members are often there for you in times of adversity simply because you're family. But get this, a friend has no obligations to you. They chose you. There's no blood, no relational ties, no obligations. They're in your life by sheer choice. The word sticks in Proverbs 18:24 says, a friend who sticks closer than a brother. That word sticks is most often translated in the Old Testament as cleave. And in the Hebrew, it literally means a committed love. The Bible is saying that there is a uniqueness that we get from friendship that no other relationship in our life can bring. Friendship adds a value to your life that romance can't, family can't, mere acquaintances and companionship can't. And we have to get the wisdom of God on friendship from the Scripture because our culture is constantly minimizing friendship and putting it on the back burner. But the Bible says it's irreplaceable. It's unique. So why is it minimized? Well, if you look at Western cultures, modern cultures like our culture here in America, modern cultures idolize erotic, romantic, and sexual love. I mean, all you have to do to see that is glance at the glossy magazine covers when you're standing in line checking out at the store. I mean, is the front page headline of all of those magazines, who's best friends with who? No. It's who's sleeping with who. Because modern cultures are captivated by sexual and romantic love while friendship barely registers on the scale. But think about the opposite. More ancient cultures, like in the Middle East or in the Far East, they're all about family. Everything is woven into the fabric of family relationships. And the same thing happens in those cultures for different reasons. Friendship is pushed to the back seat. Why does that happen? C.S. Lewis answers that. He has an incredible essay on friendship in his book, The Four Loves. And in that book, he says, friendship is undervalued in most cultures because it's not a biological or sociological necessity. In other words, if it wasn't for sexual love, you wouldn't exist. And if it wasn't for family love, you'd have never been raised. You wouldn't have been reared. So in busy cultures like ours, when we're driven to work longer hours and we have more luxuries than ever to take up what marginal time we have left, our lives are so occupied, it's the necessary relationships that put themselves on us. We only have time for the necessities. No matter what, you have a commitment and obligation to your family. You have the necessity of vocational networking for your career. You have the civic and community responsibility to be a good neighbor. But friendship is different. Friendship is the only love that is absolutely deliberate. It's chosen. It will not push itself on you. It only develops by choice and intentionality, which is why it keeps getting pushed out of our lives. We just don't make the time to be a good friend or to develop deep, meaningful friendships. And yet the book of Proverbs keeps saying you won't make it without real friends. Proverbs says the love of a friend can bring something into your life, something unique that no other kind of relationship can bring. Over and over again, Proverbs continually says that fools perish either for lack of friends or for poorly chosen friends. Now, people in our culture, in our individualistic society, walk around with our arrogant with our chest stuck out and say, I am who I choose to be. No, you're not. Don't fool yourself. Your community relationships are what formed you. In the early stages of your life, you are what your family made you. And during the rest of your life, you are what your friends make you. And Proverbs says you will either perish because of lack of real friends or due to having the wrong ones. So if friendship is so unique and important to flourishing in life, how do we get them? How do we find real friends? And that leads us to the second thing we need to know, how to discover. And pin on that word, discover. How to discover a true friend. Let me explain what discovering a friend looks like. Look back to Proverbs 18:24. It says this, a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. You got to notice the contrast here. The Proverbs is not only comparing the different groups, friends and companions, in their quality, it's comparing the quantity. It says there are many companions and a friend. You can have a lot of associates and associations, but a limited number of true friends. Real friendships are rare because of the time and energy it takes to develop them. Proverbs 27:9 says this, the heartfelt counsel of a friend is as sweet as perfume and incense. Now, the word sweet here is associated with friendship. And it's always interesting to me when I'm reading in ancient literature like the Proverbs in the Old Testament because it's talking about sweet. When we think sweet, we automatically think about sugar. But sweet was not referring to sugar. Sugar had not been discovered yet. There was no sugar at that time. So people didn't sweeten food then. That wasn't a thing. Today we create food, sweeten food, by adding sugar. We can make almost anything we eat sweet. But then you had to keep trying foods until you discovered what was naturally sweet. You didn't create sweet food, you discovered it. Here's what the wisdom writer is saying. Friendships aren't created, they are discovered. True friendship is built on the discovery of a common foundation and affinity, a common love, interest, or passion, a common vision. C.S. Lewis put it this way. Friendship is born the moment when one man says to another, "What? You too? I thought that no one but myself." Or in other words, I thought I was the only one. That's the statement that's the beginning of friendship. It's the discovery of something shared. Now, let me show you this through a comparison. While it's possible to have a romantic relationship and friendship with the same person, in many ways, romantic relationships could not be more different than friendships. Here's how. Lovers are always talking to each other about their love. Friends hardly ever talk to each other about their friendship. Lovers face each other, absorbed in each other, while friends stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder, absorbed in some common interest. Here's the point. You don't make friends by trying to make friends. You don't create friendships, but you discover a common passion or a shared experience. You too? That's important to you too? You love that too? C.S. Lewis goes on to explain this even more plainly, but remember now what I'm about to read to you, don't get mad at me. These are not my words, these are C.S. Lewis's words, all right? This is what C.S. Lewis says. This is why those pathetic people who simply want friends can never make any. The very condition of having friends is that we should want something else besides friends. In other words, if somebody asks you, do you have this passion or do you see this truth? And your honest answer is, I really don't care about that. I just want you to be my friend. Then no real friendship can develop because there's no foundation or affinity for that friendship to blossom. Lewis says, those who have nothing can share nothing. Those who are going nowhere can have no fellow travelers. This has to be a discovery of a shared foundation. But having a foundation isn't enough. Friendships need more than a foundation. They have to be forged. Okay, friendships are unique. They have to be discovered, not created, but they also have to be forged. Once there's a foundation, friendships won't last if they're not forged. So let's look at that third point, how to forge a true friendship. Now, when you study Proverbs over and over again, you keep seeing these 4 marks of a true friend. It comes up all over the book. And I want us to use these 4 marks to evaluate ourselves, evaluate our relationships. This is the standard by which you judge yourself. Am I a real good friend or not? Am I a true friend? This is the way you judge the relationships in your life. Are they real friendships or are they just acquaintances? Okay? So let's look at them quickly. The marks of true friendship. Constancy, carefulness, candor, and counsel. Number 1, constancy. Go back to Proverbs 17, that first phrase in verse 17, a friend loves at all times. Now that doesn't mean that friends have to spend all their time together. Because look at Proverbs 25:17. Let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house, lest he have his fill of you and hate you. That's pretty plain. Okay, in our culture, that would be called wearing out your welcome, all right? Okay, so What does it mean for a friend to love at all times then? It means a friend will love you through every season of life, the good times, the bad times, the ordinary, routine, and mundane times. In other words, you can't be a friend if you can't be available. Constancy is availability, but constancy is even more than that. Look at Proverbs 18:24 and notice the contrast again. A man of many companions may come to ruin. You have a lot of associations and still come to ruin. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother, a real friend, not a companion, but a real friend will not let you come to ruin. Companions will, but a real friend won't. Think about this. Most people that know you or that want to know you do so because you're useful to them. And most of the people you know them because they are useful to you. They are companions or associates. And together you're useful for making a profit at work. You're useful for winning a ball game. You're useful to accomplish a common goal, for meeting new people, or maybe socially. There is a group of companions that are useful to you because they help you have fun. But the people who only know you because you're useful to them, when the chips are down, when you're collapsing, when it's going to take a lot of their time, emotional energy, and investment to stay in close relationship with you, this is when your companions say, hey, why don't you give me a call if you need something? But a real friend is present. They're there. Because a true friend has chosen you intentionally and deliberately. They made you their goal. You're not a means to an end for them. You are the end. You are the goal. So a true friend will go to the mat for you and say, I'll do whatever it takes to keep you from falling to ruin, even if it costs me personally and greatly. True friendship has constancy. So a fair-weathered friend is not even a friend. They may be an acquaintance, they may be a companion, but they're not a friend. Now here's the second mark of true friendship, carefulness. Now this carefulness thing gets interesting, okay? There's some really interesting proverbs about this. Proverbs 26:18, like a maniac shooting arrows of death is one who deceives their neighbor and says, I was only joking, okay? Or look at this, Proverbs 27, verse 14. Now this needs to be the life verse of all of you in the room that are not morning people. This become today, as of today, this is your life verse. If anyone loudly blesses their neighbor early in the morning, it will be taken as a curse. Okay? What are these proverbs pointing to? Emotional disconnectedness. Here's someone who doesn't know their neighbor well enough to know if the jokes they're telling are going to be hurtful or not. They are so disconnected. They're saying good things, blessing, but they're going about it the wrong way at the wrong time. They're emotionally disconnected. Now look at this one, Proverbs 25:20. Like one who takes away a garment on a cold day, or like vinegar poured on a wound, is one who sings songs to a heavy heart. This person is singing joyful songs to somebody who's brokenhearted. They're emotionally disconnected. Look, if you're happy when I am crushed, devastated, and broken, you're not my true friend. It's been said, the moment you become a parent, you can only be as happy as your unhappiest child for the rest of your life. Why? Because it's automatic. Whether you want it to be or not, you're emotionally connected to that child. You're emotionally vulnerable. You can't sing songs of joy when your child's heart is broken because you hurt with them. It's automatic because you're a parent. But here's what's so incredible about friendship. Friends are not broken when you're broken because it's their duty or their obligation. They voluntarily choose to step into your mess with you. They give you their heart. They give you their emotional connectedness. They don't go on singing songs of joy when you're heavy-hearted. They don't do life as normal when yours is collapsing. It's not that they can't. They choose not to. They don't because they've chosen you, hurt and all. And that's what makes true friendship so beautiful. They're sensitive to you. They're constant. They're careful. But Now there's a balance to this careful thing, because the third mark of true friendship is candor, which really means truth-telling. Proverbs 27, verse 5 and 6 says this: better is open rebuke than hidden love. Key in on that, hidden love. And then this, verse 6, wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Now, Proverbs is poetry, and we all know that poetry consists of metaphor and paradoxes, and if you'll miss the vivid imagery of what the proverb is trying to say if you don't capture the paradox and the metaphor. It's deliberately paradoxical. Watch these phrases it uses. Friendly wounds, wounding kisses. Now, friends normally we don't use friends and wounds in the same phrase. It's paradoxical. Wounding and kisses normally don't go together. It's a paradox to make a point. The old King James says it this way, verse 6, faithful are the wounds of a friend. So what are friendly wounds? They're words that your friend needs that are going to be painful for that friend to hear. And yet, they have to hear them. But if you're afraid to say what really needs to be said, then you're not a true friend. Look at the parallel in the proverb. Verse 5 refers to hidden love. It's saying that a person who thinks they're loving you by hiding the truth from you isn't really loving you. They are not being a true friend. A true friend can't say, I love them too much to tell them. I love them too much to confront them. Hiding the truth from a friend is compared to the deceptive kisses of an enemy. It's as bad as Judas's kiss. Why? Because when you say, I love that person too much to tell them the truth, what you're really saying is, I love myself too much to tell them the truth, because you really don't want to invest the time and the emotional energy necessary to deal with whatever that thing is in your friend's life. Look at Proverbs 29:5. Those who flatter their neighbors are spreading nets for their feet. If you're unwilling to speak candidly to a friend and address their strengths and their weaknesses so they can have an accurate view of themselves, then you're setting them up for disaster. And the proverb compares that to laying a bear trap out in front of them, to setting traps for their feet. They're going to keep making disastrous decisions, one after another, because they're making decisions on a false view of themselves, an inaccurate view. They're making decisions based on who they think they are, not who they really are. And we will never know the reality about ourselves without truthful words spoken into our lives from trusted friends. And let me just warn you, if you're the boss, where you work, if you're the boss, the higher you are in the organization, or the more powerful and successful you appear to other people, the more likely people are flattering you instead of telling you the truth. Which is why so many successful people crash and burn. They didn't have any real friends that had the courage to speak the truth to them. You've got to get some real friends who can have candor with you, who can challenge you, who can call you out. A true friend is constant, careful, candid. Here's the last mark of a true friend: counsel. Proverbs 27:9, again, this time out of the NIV. Perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice, their counsel. What brings beauty into true friendship is you have the ability of two people to open their hearts to each other. They let each other see clearly all the way to the bottom of their souls. There's vulnerability, transparency, and trust. And because of that, true friends have an earned relational equity with each other, so they can say things to each other that nobody else can get away with. And when they're giving you pleasant counsel, when they're saying good things, it means more than anything coming from them, because they really know you and they're saying these good things. But true friends, if they're true friends, they don't just offer pleasant counsel. Proverbs 27:9 is pleasant counsel, but Proverbs 27:17 says this: as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Every true friendship is going to have friction. You can't tell someone the truth that they don't want to hear and sparks not fly on occasion. But when there is mutual trust and transparency, there is an earned relational equity to speak truth and love. I always say a rebuke is only as strong as a relationship. Don't be offering a rebuke to somebody you don't have equity with. But a rebuke is only as strong as a relationship. A true friend has earned the right to give you honest counsel. True friendships Listen, true friendships, some of you are in a situation like this. You're trapped. True friendships can't be built if the other person just sees you as their place to dump. They just show up and they want you to be their dump place where they just vent and share their feelings, but they never want to stop long enough for you to speak back into their life and give them counsel. And it's not true friendship if when you do get a chance to give counsel, if your counsel is always sweet and reassuring, or if your counsel is always challenging or clashing. If it's always one way or the other, somebody is manipulating somebody. It has to be balanced. There has to be back and forth, iron sharpening iron. Now you can take these 4 marks of a friend, a true friend, found in the book of Proverbs, and boil them down into one statement. A true friend always lets you in, but never lets you down. Let me show you. A true friend always lets you in. That's candor and counsel, but never lets you down. That's constancy and carefulness. Now watch this. If, and that's a big if, but if you find somebody and discover a common foundation, a shared passion, an affinity, so you got a foundation and you start forging that relationship over time by being constant, careful, candid, giving and receiving counsel. If you do that over time, you got one real friend. That's why it's so rare, because it's hard. That's why people just give up on true friendship and start calling their acquaintances friends. Now, I could stop here and use the words of Jesus and say to everybody, go and do thou likewise. Go make some real friends. But I can't help but believe that some of you felt some of the same emotions going through this that I did preparing it. Gratitude for real friends, longing because you want more of those kind of relationships, and crushing because when you measure yourself against the marks, you don't always measure up. I'm longing for more of these kinds of relationships, but I'm crushed knowing that one of the reasons I don't have them is because I'm not the best true friend. We don't have great friends because we aren't a great friend. So where are we supposed to get the power to do and be all the above? What's the source for all of this to happen in our life? I was comforted in my own longing and crushing when I started seeing friendship through the lenses of the gospel. It always it starts and ends with Jesus. And Jesus, on the night before he died, okay, he's trying to explain to his disciples the significance of his death. He's trying to get them to understand he really is going to die. They just didn't get it. And in John chapter 14 through 17, 4 chapters there, he is desperately trying to get them to understand the significance of his sacrificial death on the cross. And when he failed at every other metaphor, every other way to try to get them to understand this, he starts framing the gospel in the concept of friendship. This is what he says, John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down his life for his friends. Verse 15, I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. See, he's letting them in. Instead, I've called you friends, for everything I learned from my Father I've made known to you. You didn't choose me, I chose you. We're not obligated to each other. I chose you. You see, he let them in. He chose them even though it was going to be incredibly, personally costly to him. He's the true friend the book of Proverbs is describing. He's the true friend that Proverbs is making us long for. When Jesus said these things in John 15, suddenly the whole story of God can be understood in the terms of friendship. I mean, think of Genesis, when it says that God came down in the cool of the day and walked with Adam and Eve in the garden. That's friendship language. He came to hang out with them, which means the very reason we were created were to be friends with God. But we betrayed him. We sinned against him. And our sin drove a wedge in the relationship. What happens when you and I betray a friend? If we betray a friend, we drive a wedge in a relationship with a friend because of betrayal. Usually, that friend will turn on you as well. But in the gospel, Jesus says, you turned on me. I'm not turning on you. I'm your one true friend. I am the friend who loves at all times. I am the friend that was born for adversity. I'm the friend that will stick to you, cleave to you, a committed love for you at infinite cost to myself so that you will not come to ruin. The proverb says, blessed are the wounds of a friend. But how much more blessed are those wounds when they're not given, they're received. Jesus chose to take the wounds that were meant for you and I. Isaiah says he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. Blessed are the wounds of our friend. He's the perfect friend. How much more vulnerable can you be than that? He was exposed, broken, transparent. There is no more possibility of a deeper emotional connection than that. He let you in, and he'll never let you down. Here's how this changes you. This is why this matters. When you have the security of a friendship with the perfect friend, it frees you. You no longer spend the rest of your life striving to make friends because you have the perfect, ultimate, true friend. But when you come to that understanding, ironically, as you pursue him and his purposes, you now have the perfect foundation on which to discover the deepest friendships you'll ever have in your life. Not while you're striving to make them, but you will discover them in the foundation of Christ. Some of the most meaningful relationships in my life have been with people I've had the least in common with, except Jesus. They were different colors. They spoke different languages. I've been to other parts in the world, and I've only been there for 2 weeks, and I get ready to leave, and they all show up at the airport, and we all cry. We can't even talk each other's language. But there is this bond that is created on a shared passion, a mutual truth, a shared vision that united our hearts together. Let me show you how having Jesus as a true friend can free you. And I'll leave you with this. Most of you know I was an addict, a big party kid. Our town was a small town, and if it was illegal or fun before I came to Jesus, I was in the middle of it, okay? When I met Jesus, I radically had an encounter with Jesus. Something happened. I lost my pack. I mean, the things I was doing, I was really close to those people. I love those people. We had a bond, and all of a sudden, we had nothing in common anymore. They definitely weren't interested in what I was interested in. I was trying not to be interested in what they were doing, and I missed them. And I would say, you know what, I'm going to go hang out with them. I'm not going to do the stuff. Boom, I was right back where they were, and I realized I can't be with them and get sober. So I was lonely. I mean, incredibly lonely. So lonely, I almost didn't make it. One day I thought, I didn't have anything to look forward to on the weekends anymore. I wasn't going to parties and drinking and doing everything else. So I remember one week I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put myself out there. There was a girl, I don't know that she was a believer. She was a good person. She was virtuous as a person. And so I thought, you know what, I just want some company. So I asked her out, and we went out that night and had a completely wholesome date. Everything was in the dark. There was in the light. There was nothing compromising. It was all in the light, I promise. There were plenty in the dark. This one was one of the first ones in the light, all right? It was totally wholesome, okay? We had some great conversations. I mean, it was a really mature date, and we had a blast. Both of us were conversationalists. It was great. I took her home early, visited with her mom and dad. When I got ready to leave, she said, Brian, I have never been treated so respectfully by a guy my whole life. I've never been on a date like this, and it's been refreshing, really refreshing. So I thought, well, maybe we'll do this again. I went to football practice that week, and towards the end of the week, I was coming back carrying my pads and my helmet, and she was finishing cheer practice and came over to get a drink of water, and I walked up to her and said, hey, I had a great time. I think maybe you did too. And she said, I did. It was incredible. I said, why don't we go again this weekend? And she said, I want to. I really do. She said, but I've been trying to find words to express what I'm feeling. And she said, oddly enough, a bunch of us girls on the cheer squad and some of the other girls in school were talking at lunch, and we were talking about the guys in school, and somehow you dominated a part of the conversation. Everybody started talking about your change, like how different you are. And we're proud of you. Don't get us wrong. We're incredibly proud of you being sober and what's going on. We're proud of you. But this is one of the girls at the table said this, And I think it put in words what I was thinking. And this is basically what they said, is that you are perfect husband material. You're not very good boyfriend material. We're 17, 18 years old. We're about to go to college. We want to be sorority sisters. We want to live it up. We want to party. We want to sow all of our wild oats, maybe in our mid-20s. And she kept on talking. Basically, by the end of it, she said, let me go sow my wild oats, get ready to settle down, get with me in 7 years. I went back to my truck, and I'm going to tell you what was shocking to me that day. I sat down in my truck, and I'm thinking, okay, why am I not angry? Why am I not embarrassed? Why do I not feel rejected? Because the Brian that had not yet met Jesus would have felt all those emotions. I mean, I'd have been embarrassed. I'd have been rejected. I'd have been angry. But I'm fine. Am I sick? I mean, what's going on? You know? And I sat there and realized my relationship with Jesus was put to the test. Like, I really made him my Lord. He really became my friend. I was really now living for the majority of one. Until that moment, I had been a slave to everybody else's opinions and what everybody else thought. But now, because he was the perfect friend in my life, I was freed from the influence and the opinions of all that people. Now all that mattered is what he thought. And I felt it sitting there behind the field house. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I'm finally free. I felt it. So I said, all right, forget it. I'm not pursuing girls. I'm not pursuing friendships. I'm going to pursue Jesus. And because of that, I heard the call to preach, went into the ministry, started preaching. And that summer, I went to a camp because I was pursuing Jesus. I wanted more. So I go to this summer camp where there are hundreds of kids. And I found a new pack. I found a new pack. And out of that pack, I developed friends. You know Pastor Shane on our staff here? I met him at that camp. Pastor Randy, that pastors in Durban, I met him at that camp. Friends for life. Shared affinity and a foundation. And my best friend, she was 15. I met her, and we've been dating 30 years. I met her at that camp. You can't make friends trying to make friends. You make friends by pursuing passion. And then it's discovered and then forged. Stand with me all over this place, will you? I want to pray for you that Jesus would become the truest friend, and because of that, you would now be empowered to be a true friend and develop true friendships. Listen, if Jesus isn't your true friend, if Jesus is just an acquaintance of yours, that needs to change today. Today. Our prayer team will be at the back at the prayer stations, and there is no greater honor in our lives when people move over the line from making Jesus an acquaintance to a true friend. Give him your life. It changes everything. Don't forget Guest Connect party, worship night. It's a great day. Father, will you bless them and keep them? Make your face shine down upon them. Be gracious to them. Turn your countenance, their direction, God, and give them peace. Help them learn from you to be a true friend. And God, would you bless them with rare but real friendships. In Jesus' name. You're the answer, Lord.